Hi everyone. Today I want to talk about a really interesting problem and a pretty elegant solution to it. So the paper is called Grounding LLMs in Scientific Discovery via Embodied Actions, and the framework at the center of this is called EmbodiedAct. So the core idea is simple. What if an AI agent just didn't think about a simulation, but it actually lived inside the simulation while it ran? So let's unpack the idea what this exactly means. So here is the fundamental problem statement with how LLM-based scientific agents work today. So they follow what is called an execute then response loop. You send the agent a task, it generates some code or calls a set of API, the simulation runs, and only then the agent gets to see what happens. So the issue is everything in the middle. So imagine a solution that is running for 30 seconds. Midway through it starts diverging, oscillations blow up, and values kind of go to infinity. The agent absolutely has no idea about this. It is waiting in the dark, and by the time it gets the result, the computation is already wasted. And sometimes the failure message that it gets is not even informative enough to explain what went wrong. So this is what authors actually call as disembodiment. The reasoning and execution are completely decoupled in this case. That's the problem of disembodiment. So uh, the solution authors propose here is like a fundamental shift, like from passive tool use to an active embodied agency. On the left, you have the old way as code as action, discrete API calls, restricted function execution, and feedback only after everything is done. The agent essentially is throwing a dart and waiting to see if it hit or not. On the right is what embodied act proposes. The agent is continuously perceiving what is happening inside the simulation. It can see the intermediate states in real time, and it can actually go and intervene before things go south. So the authors put it really nicely. Like LLM must not just reason about the actions, they must actively navigate dynamic physical environments. So that's the core philosophical shift authors are talking about here. Um, Now let's look at how this is actually built. So Embodied Act has two main halves, the brain and the body. The brain is the LLM agent and it contains four modules. We'll talk about this in detail in a second. The body is in the simulation environment. Like think it as a MATLAB or Simulink or actually running a physics engine such as ISACSIM. So what connects these two is called the nerve, an asynchronous state synchronization protocol. So it's essentially a persistent WebSocket connection that keeps the brain and body in constant two-way communication. The agent is not just sending commands and walking away. It's maintaining a live connection here the entire time as the simulation runs. There are two feedback paths you can see here. So as a fast inner loop for immediate hot fixes and a slower outer loop for structural replanning. Think of this like reflexes and conscious decision making, something like that. So speaking in detail about the brain, the authors actually drew inspiration for this from human cognitive neuroscience while designing the four modules that are part of the brain. It's a very nice analogy, according to me. First, the strategic planner. This is like the prefrontal cortex. It takes the high-level scientific goals and breaks it down into hierarchy of subtasks and atomic steps. The primitive generator is the parietal cortex. It takes each step and translates it into actual executable code, not generic Python, but domain-specific MATLAB primitives such as ODE45 or linprog and etc. This matters because these are numerically robust, well-tested solvers, not hand-rolled implementations. The third one, the runtime perception engine, is something like the amygdala of the brain. It's watching. It's always watching. It monitors the live output stream and classifies the simulation state as normal, warning, or error in real time. Finally, the reflective decision maker acts as the judge. After execution, it checks whether the results actually satisfy the scientific constraints. If not, it decides whether to tweak the parameters locally or throw out the whole plan and start over again. Um, Looking in detail into the nervous system, the nerve or the asynchronous state protocol, uh, it's like this is let's talk a little more about this, because it's what this is what makes all of this possible, like all these communication possible. Traditional tool calling is synchronous processing, where you send a command, you wait, you get a response. The nerve breaks this model in three ways. Asynchronous decoupling: the moment that agent sends an action, it gets an immediate acknowledgement. The execution continues independently, and the agent does not have to block the session, block and wait. The session also stays alive across multiple interactions, preserving the variable state. The second one is real-time streaming. While the simulation is running, the environment is actually actively pushing data back, such as standard outputs, system events, live trajectory data, and etc. The agent is watching the simulation unfold and not waiting for it to finish. The third one is bidirectional intervention. And this is the most powerful part of this architecture. If agent sees something going wrong in the middle of execution, it can send a stop signal immediately. It does not have to wait for the crash. It can intervene, fix, and restart everything again. So all without the simulation like completely failing, like simulation completely going south. So talking in detail about the reflex, like the conversation about the nerve, this brings us to what I think is one of the coolest pieces of this particular framework, which is the hot fix loop. So here is the scenario: a simulation starts running stably. Partway through, the signal starts oscillating wildly, like the classical numerical instability. In a traditional system, the agent waits, the simulation crashes, you get an unhelpful error message. But in Embodied Act, the runtime perception engine catches this divergence in real time and triggers a warning state. The agent immediately sends a stop signal before even the simulation fully fails. Then the hotfix loop kicks in, and it computes a repair action and reruns the whole simulation with the corrected parameters. So the agent never had to wait for the process to fail. It responded in real time like a reflex action. So this is what drives the reliability improvements we'll be discussing in the results. So let us see this in action with Paper's main case study. So, designing a PID controller for a magnetic leviation system. This is the example they take. The goal is to find the parameters that satisfy 5 simultaneous constraints, which is settling time, overshoot, steady state error, gain margin, and also phase margin. The traditional approach is Ziegler-Nicholas tuning, which approximates the system as a simple first order model. So that approximation loses too much of the real-time dynamics and ends up violating two of five of the constraints. The pass rate is 0%. EmbodiedAct solves this through two loops working together. The outer loop is slow and structural. It detects the initial approach and can't eliminate steady state error. So it replans, switching to a PID topology and even decomposing the third order plant into 3 cascaded first order blocks for better observability. The inner loop is fast and numerical. So once the structure is correct, it monitors the live trajectory, applies physics informed reasoning, and fine tunes the gain parameters iteration by iteration until all 5 constraints are satisfied with the margin to spare. The final pass rate for this approach is like 100%. Now, looking into the results, Embodied Act was evaluated on 2 different benchmarks. The ING design, a practical engineering simulation benchmark. Here, Embodied Act with GPT 5.2 scores 76% compared to 54.4% for Code Act or 48% for the pure Gen AI models. This is a significant jump. On Ski Bench 107, which is a benchmark with college level scientific problems in maths, physics, and chemistry, Embodied Act hits the 48.6%. 48.6% up from compared to 34.58% for Code Act, which is one of the state of the art methods. The mathematics subcategory is just particularly striking, where the jump is from 50% to 83.33%. That is driven by the primitive generator using robust MATLAB solvers instead of hard-coded numerical methods. And importantly, these gains are model agnostic. So whether you use Claude, Qwen, or Gemini as backbone, Embodied Act constantly outperforms all the other alternatives. Beyond raw accuracy, the paper also looks at reliability. This is which I think is actually more practically important metric. So they ran each task three times and plotted the worst case score against the best case score. If a method is reliable, they should be close together, like cluttering across the diagonal. The shaded region here on the left, the zero zone, represents the task where a method occasionally scores zero. Fails completely on some runs. Baselines are packed into this zone. Embodied Act effectively vacates this zone. 81.5 percentage of its tasks fall within the narrow divergence gap of 20 points compared to 73.9 percentage for generative models and 63 percentage for Code Act. The intuition is clear. Because the agent catches divergence before it becomes catastrophic, the worst case scenario stays competitive with the best case scenario. You'll get consistency, not just peak performance. You get consistency and not just accuracy in very rare cases. So let me quickly summarize the architectural differences side by side. Generative models operate on pure textual reasoning with post hoc feedback only. They are 100% blind to anything that is happening during execution. Code Act adds code execution and iterative debugging, which helps, but it is still post hoc. It remains blind to transient anomalies during simulation's lifetime. Embodied Act is the only one with the real-time streaming feedback, domain-specific primitives, and immediate hotfix capability. It's the only paradigm where the agent is fully monitoring what is happening as it happens. The ablation study in this paper confirms this clearly. Removing the runtime perception engine drops the performance to roughly Code Act levels, while removing the reflective planner has a much smaller effect. The perception is the key ingredient of this architecture. So where does all these things leave us? The authors frame three big takeaways from this paper. First, verifiable execution. You have to ground abstract reasoning to physical simulation. Theoretical correctness is alone not enough if the solution fails under real dynamics. Second, dynamic navigation. The shift from discrete API calls to continuous streaming is what closes the blind spot in the process-oriented workflows. Third, autonomous discovery. The dual loop architecture doesn't just run simulations, it actively discovers what is correct both structurally and numerically in real time. This vision is compelling. Future AI scientists should not just reason about what to do. They should be present in the environment, watching, learning, and correcting as the physics unfolds. So, thank you so much for listening.